All right, so we kind of got off track. This is going to be part we were talking about getting into military technology. Yeah, and then we didn't even get into what we prefaced this with. So
that was my fault. We started talking about.
No, it's okay. It was good. It was good conversation. I had fun. I don't have a lot of people to talk to about this stuff, so we'll just jump right into it. So there's the days of fighting with regular bombs and ARs and large caliber weapons and stuff is kind of changing. The landscape of warfare seems to be going more the AI direction, more the drones. And a lot of people are flying the drones, but instead of being out there with the gun, shooting people, there's, you're sitting there and a drone starts to chase you with a bomb, or say you're hit out in a building, like all of a sudden the drone flies in and just boom and blows you up. And some of these videos you can see in here, the guys, sometimes they're just like, oh, we're done. Yeah. And they're just like shot and they're like, it's too late. And they know. Yeah. So anyways, here is some DARPA stuff. U.S. military reveals $65 million Matrix project to plug our brains directly into computers. DARPA spending $65 million to research brain-computer interfaces. I'm not going to get too far into this article. You can look this stuff up. It's on TechWorm. I'll put all these links in the comments. But I mean, are we going to see human computer cyborg hybrids, that are the ones that is flying and controlling some of this AI? It's kind of interesting to see where this is going. I don't think that humans are going to be irrelevant, but like Elon Musk said, basically if you can't beat them, join them. He came out and talked about AI. Then he's like, I'm coming out with Neuralink.
Sure. So. No, it is interesting. This has been going on for some time, where with drones have been a huge part of military assets now for a lot of years. I mean, really for the last 20 years, and we call them UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles. There's still a human who's flying that drone, but to be able to, I think, see the enemy in a way that we couldn't before, to be able to zoom in and say, there's our target, and send a drone to go to kill that enemy. That's a big deal. Where before you'd have to send a human to identify the enemy, have a spotter, have somebody there watching, and then you either send an artillery, call it an airstrike, whatever it might be, or you just, go in and raid them, and it's actually pretty interesting. We start talking about psychology of artificial intelligence, or not really AI, but really let's just talk about, technology in general, and the way we apply these technological advances on the battlefield. Where before I'd have to look at somebody in the face to kill them if they were the enemy. Now being able to do it from afar, if you think about that, the human psychology between having to actually face and feel your opponent versus being able to push a button, and never seeing them face to face, seeing them through the camera or through some other lens, if that makes sense. There's actually a pretty book a buddy of mine, Wayne Phelps, wrote called On Killing from Afar, On Killing Remotely. I'm sorry, it's called On Killing Remotely. It talks about that psychology. There was a book that was written years ago before that called On Killing. It talks about the psychology of killing people, and I'm only talking about killing because we're talking about the military, and that's the military's job, right? And these are tools now that we're going to use to eradicate our enemies. And it talks about how it still needs a human. A human still has to face that consequence of doing that. And I think that's maybe what we're trying to remove is that human emotion out of that. But there's still a human somewhere that has to put it together and ultimately push that button. As far as this stuff goes, where you're talking about robotics and maybe having soldiers or Marines or service members that have robotic advances within their human bodies, that's a whole nother deal, where they can run faster, jump higher, think more clearly, think faster, react quicker, shoot better, I mean, those are all things that'll be, I don't know. I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse, right? I mean, we always said that we would create our own enemy that would lead to our own demise, and maybe that's what we're doing, How do you turn these things off? And this is the interesting thing. We talk about AI, getting these conversations you know, always, every single time you have a conversation, somebody's going to say, well, can't we just turn them off? You know, and I know you've seen the studies where they try to turn a computer off and it turns itself back on, you know, or they start talking to each other in languages that we can't understand.
That was crazy when those two AI systems, they linked them together and they created their own language in no time and started communicating. They were like, shut it down.
And you can, you know, and that's what's scary is not the right word, you know, but it is a concern, right? Where what if we build something that we can't control? That's completely out of control, you know, that turns against us. What stops them from communicating and I don't know, the human brain to me is the most complex thing in the universe. How many years have we been studying that? We still are just starting to understand the way the human brain works, you know? And I don't know, what do they say? They say we use about 14 to 15% of our brain at any given time. What if we could get to use 100% of our brain? I think we could move things remotely. You know, I think we could levitate. I think we could fly. I think we could do all kinds of crazy stuff if we actually used the entire power of our brain. But how do we get there? I don't know.
Well, I think we're transitioning into a time where we might see things more automated without humans also.
Sure.
Because they can set the program to be like, to let the drone or whatever it is, or the robot to say, you can identify the enemy. I mean,
there has to be enough scenarios where it can pull from those scenarios.
Yeah, but they could program to just kill everything in sight too, you know, kill every human or, I mean, you could probably.
So who's held accountable then, right? Because right now, if a U.S. service member goes and shoots the wrong person, they get tried for murder.
Yeah.
I mean, they are held liable and accountable for
That's
that.
an interesting question.
So where's that accountability going to lie? You know, when you have a drone that's not even controlled by a human in a box, you know, we're talking about things that are just completely automated on their own intelligently.
So anyways.
Totally awesome or totally frightening. Look at this. China's military has released this video of a four-legged robot marching through a field with an automatic rifle mounted on its back. The Chinese state broadcaster calls it the newest member of China's urban combat
All right, that's
operation.
enough. I mean, people can look this up. There's a bunch of this. Go ahead and scroll to the next video. Or what did they say they were making the robot dogs for first? I don't remember, but it wasn't supposed to be a weapon of war, of course.
Of course.
And it's never that way with DARPA, right? And you know, when the Predator drones and things like that is what you were dealing with, that was very expensive, strategic target. You know what I mean? So yeah, go ahead into that next drone video. So this is, I wouldn't even say I mean, we're going to see stuff more advanced than this, but this is actually pretty caveman for technology. I mean, this is just some explosives strapped to, I mean, compared to using a Predator drone or a Patriot missile, or, I mean, this is very cheap way to do a whole lot of killing. Go ahead and play the video. I believe these are, is that the Azov? I believe these are Ukrainians that are going after Russian soldiers. I could be incorrect, but I'm pretty sure. He's got the VR headset. If you guys haven't seen people that can fly these drones with VR headsets, I mean, they are freaking wild. I mean, it is crazy. I mean, they can go and, you know, take tanks out with this. Oh, and then there you can see the view from the VR headset. A little bit staticky, but oh yeah, watch this one. This one, this poor guy. He knows he's being hunted by a drone. Little cat and mouse game. He knows what's going on. Boom. Yeah, he's done. Go to the next one.
This new AI-powered tank developed for the U.S. Army is absolutely incredible. And let me tell you why. Known as the Ripsaw M5, it requires no human crew. It operates entirely autonomously. Once it arrives close to its target location, it can switch to a reconnaissance mode, deploying its own drone squadron. Equipped with a 360-degree situational awareness system, the tank uses multiple sensors to get a full view of its environment. The weapon system of the Ripsaw is equally impressive. It can be armed with a 30mm chain gun for targeting troops and light vehicles, and javelin missiles for destroying enemy armor. The Ripsaw M5 also boasts exceptional mobility thanks to its advanced suspension system and lightweight design, allowing it to navigate various terrains with ease. It can be transported by helicopters or C-130 planes, as it weighs just 10 tons. Currently, this amazing tank is still in development, but there are hopes that the Ripsaw M5 will be ready for deployment by 2026.
2026. That's not very far away, man. It's already almost 2025. Yeah. All right, let's go to the next one. We'll go through this. Terminator in action. Here we go. Here's another. I believe this is a Russian BMPT Terminator, I guess. How'd you like to be in a gunfight with that thing? And I believe this is actually not a drill. I believe this is actually live in warfare, but sometimes you get these videos, you don't know for sure. So Terminator. All right, let's go to this one now. We're gonna rip through these. A lot of videos you won't see on mainstream media.
Out that Israel's techno dystopia is testing out remote-controlled guns with AI tracking systems on civilians in the West Bank. They've just installed one in Haida refugee camp, pointing directly at the entrance to the Palestinian neighborhood. This same spot where an Israeli sniper shot dead a 13-year-old boy and regularly fires at kids. I guess Israel's massive wall, armored military jeeps, snipers, foot soldiers, and 6 watchtowers surrounding the area just wasn't enough defense against the scary Palestinian kids with rocks.
Okay, so automated gun systems there. Go ahead. Here's another drone one. These poor guys, they're just they're in this warehouse. They're like, oh, we're done. It's over. That's it. All right, we got him. I think we got maybe one more video. Here comes the thousand. That's probably maybe $1,000, you know, for something like that, which is not very much. Yeah, go ahead and you can turn it off. That guy got hit. I gave you a lot of videos. Sorry guys, if you guys are. You probably get tired of.
I mean, if you think about the war machine,
all right,
and the military-industrial complex, you know, and all the money that gets dumped into fighting wars, you know, it's absolutely insane.
I wonder how many times we could have solved the world hunger.
Absolutely. You know, I think there's really a lot more important things to do than to kill each other, you know, and ways that we can communicate. And war's an absolute racket. I think we know that. You know, we know war's a racket. We know that war makes
the same people fund both.
Very wealthy people much more wealthy.
They keep us fighting with each other while the same people continue to rule the world, fund both sides of it.
Absolutely. You know, and we fund our own wars, and as long as we can keep that machine going, you know, and people can watch this stuff and go, whoa, wow, look at that technology. That's pretty cool. Because I mean, war sucks. Killing people sucks, you know. But when you look at that, the power of that technology, that sheer power, it's like, whoa, that's pretty awesome, right? I mean, as far as the capabilities of what something can do, you know, what we've been able to create, but at what cost? You know, they say that war is. There's a famous quote somewhere where it says like war is paid for in dollars, but the real cost is human lives, or something like that, you know, or the reward is in dollars, but the cost is human lives, and that's exactly true. You know, when we think about, you know, the many wars that we've had and we continue to have, that could probably, like you said, we could probably solve it over a cup of coffee, man, and just
We just
talk
did
about things.
$24 billion in California for the homeless. I believe it was 160,000 per homeless person is the stats I looked at. And I mean, I don't know exactly if that's the exact number. I don't know how you could actually know how many homeless people are out there. It's all a guesstimate, but $24 billion. And I wonder how much of that money actually went to helping people. I mean, so 160,000 per person, while your average while the politicians are a lot of that money is already showing that it went to a lot of family members and stuff like that. It's totally corrupt. It
completely is.
But the government can't fix. Did the homelessness get any better?
No.
24 billion spent 160,000 per person, and I don't know anybody say. Oh, I guess you said San Francisco looks cleaner.
Yeah, but it's only gotten cleaned up because they've moved all the homeless into one section, into the Tenderloin. So you go to Tenderloin, and they say that's horrible. They say because they kind of just took everybody and moved them into that area. And they fenced off a lot of the bridges and everything so they can't camp underneath them. A lot of these areas that were camping out, they fenced off and they're keeping people out and sort of corralling them into one section of the city, which seemingly is working. But going back to this, you know that we're not creating these weapons to go kill the enemies of our country or to defend the country. That's a farce, right? That's a cover. We're doing it to make people rich. And we need to remember that. At the end of the day, when we started this whole project from day one, it's all about fighting corruption, right? Corruption at the local level, corruption at the state level, and so on and so forth, all the way up to the global level. And I really believe when I see these things, I'm thinking to myself, in my mind, like, somebody's going to make a lot of money off of this. They're going to make a ton of money off this stuff because, like you said, it's a $1,000 drone, but it's not. That's a $10 million drone. It would cost $1,000 to make. If I went to Best Buy and bought a drone, it's $1,000. But once you add the bureaucracy to it, and that military-industrial complex gets involved, that's a $10 million drone.
Yeah, there was a congressman, it was I believe it was a congressman, but he was at a hearing, at a congressional hearing, and he pulled out this sandwich baggie of bearings, and it was, or maybe it was like one of those half-gallon Ziplocs, and it had, like, I don't know, maybe a couple pounds of bearings in it, and these little teeny bearings, and he goes, these bearings right here go on, I forget what fighter jet it was, or I think they were a common bearing used on multiple military planes. And he goes, you don't even need a high school diploma to work at the factory where these are made. And he goes, does anybody in here know how much these bearings cost? And they were like, he's like $90,000.
Guaranteed.
And it was this little, and it's like $90,000, huh? And look at how much these jets cost. I mean, there's jets worth $20 million. I mean,
it's insane, and it's not just the jet itself, right? It's all the computer systems that go into these jets. All the technology that gets attached to them, and then you start adding your munitions, and what those cost, and it's absolutely insane, and it's not going anywhere. Eisenhower warned us. Watch Eisenhower's last speech in the Oval Office. He warns us against the military-industrial complex. Reagan talked about it as well. And that's what we're in, So now we're like, man, how much more weaponry can we create? How can we get rich off of this? Because wars will always be fought. We can always create a war, right? I mean, think about it. It's a fail-proof business. If business is slow, I can go make business good. I can go start a war somewhere, And no politician is beyond that. Especially when we start talking about why politicians walk away millionaires from a job that pays $100,000 a year, after a few years. There's a reason, it's no reason other than they're buying into that military industrial complex and funding wars. So they can go start a war tomorrow. Congress could go declare a war tonight.
Well, apparently it seems like presidents can just declare war illegally. I mean, it's been happening since George W. Bush and did I say legally? Illegally.
No, you're right.
Okay.
What you said was right.
Yeah. So anyways, even though it's illegal, it seems like
They do it
through executive order. A lot of
through
things
the
are just
Patriot Act, right? Oh no, we're protecting you, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Saddam's a bad guy. He has weapons of mass destruction.
Oops, we were wrong.
We need to go get him. Oh no, we lied.
we overthrew a country.
And they
Oops.
told us we lied. They said, we lied about that because the American people could never stomach another war without that lie, without believing that there was something there worth having.
But it's okay when that stuff uncovers 4 wars later. You kind of forget about it. You know what I'm saying? You're like,
oh, too bad, so sad. I think George W. Bush is a war criminal. I think he's one of the most corrupt presidents we ever had. I think his dad was corrupt. Look into that. That's a whole other podcast.
yeah. So George Bush was senior. I mean, he was
Head of the
probably the
CIA.
first. He was head of the CIA, and this goes all the way back to JFK and stuff like that. Getting back in those times, he was involved in stuff all the way back then. George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush was the one who coined the term New World Order. He was the first politician that I've seen that really said, New World Order, New World Order.
Yeah.
We're going to have a New World Order.
Sure.
And he was up there on the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commissions, the Bilderberg meetings. And
think about that Council of Foreign Relations. What that is, it's not even a government agency at all, but it's a club where people have to go and intern there and learn about foreign relations, right? Which really is what the craft of how we go and prosecute wars against other countries.
So they described themselves as and people that were, in charge of the CFR. I don't remember exactly. This goes back some time, but they described themselves as the steering committee for U.S. foreign policy.
Yeah, think about that. The steering committee.
Yeah, we're the steering committee, but it's kind of funny. The Dick Cheney.
Kellogg Brown Root, Halliburton, he was the president of that company, and then he's vice president of the United States. And lo and behold, we're going to have a war because it's going to make Halliburton a lot of money. It would always piss us off, in the Marine Corps when we would see these guys just sitting in the chow hall and eating all day, making $180,000 a year, just sitting there eating all day. We didn't need them. They didn't prosecute the war. We had Marines and soldiers and airmen and sailors that were able to do that, So let's say you had a Marine who was an air conditioning mechanic. That's what he did, right? He worked in utilities, and that's what they do. They would be doing that job. But guess what? Halliburton had an air conditioning mechanic that was getting paid $180,000 a year to be there as well. But that guy's not doing anything because it's the Marines that are doing it, And that's when I started to really see, kind of got to look back behind the curtain a little bit and was able to witness some of those things firsthand about this government bureaucratic waste, and that's when I started to really become bitter. And maybe bitter's not the word. Maybe it was just like indignant, where I saw real quickly that we weren't here to protect this country. We're not fighting for our freedom. There's no freedom to fight for here. We're making somebody really rich right now.
We have to do a deep dive on certain programs where, like, there's this big PR campaign talks about all this money that's going to be used to make this big difference.
Yeah.
And then you look at all the money and all the whatever it is, and then look at what the result is.
Yeah.
Like, they might have like one poster child that they saved or something like that.
Sure.
But you're like, okay, so you spent $24 billion and you really saved 3 people.
Yeah.
Like, how much,
Yeah.
like, we could have, what could we have done with that amount of money?
Yeah. How much better would our schools be?
And it goes back to like warfare, and there's that old famous quote from Stalin, you kill one person, it's a tragedy. You kill 10,000, it's a statistic. I think around 600,000 people have died in the Ukraine and Russian conflict, and that's a
wild.
deep dive alone there. But it's okay, 600,000. They could have taken one person and pulled on people's heartstrings,
Sure.
and made a big deal out of it, just like they would with people like George Floyd or other people that have had people
make 'em
uprising over.
Yeah.
When there's all these children going missing, people getting murdered all the time, but they're just a number.
Just a number, just a stat, just something that you click on your phone and read about, and that's it.
I think the media should be held accountable for, one day for trying to gaslight people on specific cherry-picked stories with a single person or a single incident when they're obviously on purpose ignoring the larger elephant in the room.
Absolutely.
You know, so
It's all
I mean,
distractions.
I hope one day we see some justice.
We will. I think we will. And this is what the track we're on. This is why we expose these things. And we talk, people might think, why are these guys talking about military technology? Because it applies to the level of corruption in government. And it applies to you and me. That somebody has to pay for that. You know, we're paying for that. You know, every time we go to the store and pay a tax, every time we pay our income taxes, our state taxes, it's going to something that maybe we don't agree with, you know. And until we can get a hold of that and be able to hold people accountable and responsible for our money, you know, we'll continue to have atrocities committed throughout the world.
If you had a child today, I'd be curious how much they would actually be born in debt.
Oh yeah.
How fair is that? You're born and I mean,
in debt. You're
I'd imagine it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't have the exact.
Person. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. If you were born and you look at, and yeah, anyways, it's the world is a crazy place. But
Wild stuff. But stay tuned. I think AI overall, just kind of recap, I think it can be a force multiplier for us where it can be really good. It can be essential, you know. But we have to figure out how to control it. You know, we can never get rid of our humanity, you know, and the emotions that guide us, right? Our conscience, you know. And I think when we take it's easy to kill somebody, you know, when I'm not the one having to push the button or I'm not the one having to face the enemy, right? That's easy, right? It's just a robot. You know, there's no emotion, there's no thought process there, you know. So that'll be an interesting thing, man. That's a pretty deep discussion to have where it gets into psychology. Maybe some philosophy there, but
well, to be continued.
to be continued. We'll keep talking about it, but I'll keep watching it. I think that's interesting stuff.
All right, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you.